got to lie.
Welcome to Craig Talking Sports. And as you said, you ain't got to lie, Craig. So I got 5 topics here. I'm going to give you my honest take on all 5 of them. If you agree, you agree. If you don't, then you don't. That's the beautiful thing about debating sports. Let me know your reactions, positive, negative. Love to engage in dialogue after you hear what I have to say for myself today. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring us to the first topic on my mind. It has to do with Louisville basketball. For those of you that aren't aware, there's a book that will be coming out. Actually came out today on the 12th. It's called Breaking Cardinal Rules. What it does is it goes into great detail on allegations on the University of Louisville, the recruiting tactics and practices, how certain high-profile recruits had visits arranged for them, I guess you could say, with escorts in the local Louisville area. Now, this isn't anything new to anyone that has followed college sports for some time now. Aside from Louisville, if you go back to Marcus Camby at UMass in the 90s, he was found guilty of taking $28,000 from 2 different agents while he was there at UMass. UMass had to then forfeit some wins in a Final Four appearance during Marcus Camby's time there. Also lost about $150,000 in revenue towards the athletics budget from these allegations. But as you go deeper and deeper into those Marcus Camby allegations, you will see that these agents also peppered him with jewelry, I guess other luxury items that most college students don't have access to, and also as an amateur athlete violated his amateur status. But the other thing he was linked to there was prostitutes. If you go back to the 1960s, Bear Bryant, he was famous for Bears Angels. According to legend, he's the one that started this whole having recruiting hostesses and having beautiful females engage with the student body, the potential student athletes, showing them a good time. Tennessee and Oklahoma State also have long storied histories of these recruiting hostess allegations. Les Miles was on staff at Oklahoma State. He's been on record of speaking of some of these activities. At Tennessee, it was a long-running tradition. Strip clubs, football parties, you name it. You had a grand old time. And then also these recruiting hostesses. These recruiting hostesses would take the students out around campus, show them a good time, take them to a party, get them all gassed up, get them feeling good. In some instances, there is, sexual moments that have occurred amongst, potential student athletes and these recruiting hostesses. If you look at He Got Game with Ray Allen, better known as Jesus Shuttlesworth in that movie with Spike Lee, when he's on a recruiting trip, he is in a room with 2 females on the recruiting trip, and they're showing him a good time. They're entertaining him. Sexual activities are, what is led for us to believe. It's what happens, and it's something that's always been there in college sports, and it's not something that's ever going to go away. Sex sells. It's a media tactic. It's a business tactic. Look at the advertisement with shampoo commercials. I mean, you got a girl in a shower washing her hair. I mean, what are you supposed to imagine? Sex sells. College coaches aren't dumb. If you got a 17, 18-year-old high school kid sitting there right in front of you, he's coming out on campus. He's a big-time college recruit. You want to show him a good time. You got to keep up with the Joneses. And you try to think outside the box. You try to show him what life could be like there if he maintains that athletic accomplishment. Is it right? I don't know. Is it wrong? I don't know. But whenever you start bringing in paying people for sexual escapades and the mark you can bring onto a program and the potential sanctions that may come from this book, it's damning. Rick Pitino has been very quiet on these allegations. Luke Hancock, former player for Louisville, part of the Final Four run, was more of a 3-and-D guy for them. He was on the radio earlier today with a local sports radio network mentioning how he saw different girls coming in and out of these dorm rooms as he, spent time on these dorms, in these dorm floors where the activities are, to have allegedly taken place. And as he said, it's nothing crazy to see some young girls coming in and out of dorm rooms, especially amongst athletes, but he didn't think it got to that level. So it really goes to speak with a member of the former staff there who's moved on. His first name escapes me, but last name is McGee. I believe he's now at the University of Missouri, Kansas City with the basketball staff there. So what all comes of these allegations and what all comes of what was written in the book, what's true, what's not, we'll see. Kid at Ohio State, Lyles, freshman this year, he didn't deny these allegations, but he also didn't confirm them. He said that it may have happened, may have taken place, but do some more research on your own. Let me know what you think about that. But what we're going to do now is I mentioned Oklahoma State in the last bit. And for those of you that follow college football, you will have known that West Virginia has played Oklahoma and Oklahoma State already this year, and they have lost to both of them. Lost to Oklahoma State this weekend, score 33-26. And then they lost to Oklahoma by 20, 44-24. West Virginia has no business playing Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, TCU. They don't belong in the Big 12. They're a Big 10 team. They're an ACC team due to the region that they're in and due to recruiting. West Virginia, especially in football, they have made a living out of coming down into South Florida, specifically Broward and Broward and Miami-Dade counties. Geno Smith, Yvonne McFarland. There's a lot of different guys. Noel Devine, he's from the west coast of Florida. But when they've been competitive, they've had a lot of South Florida talent on that team. The problem is when you start getting into their backups and the depth. They're recruiting West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, New York, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. Not bad football states. But when you're Oklahoma State, you're recruiting Oklahoma and Texas, maybe a little California. I don't see how West Virginia can build a perennial power with a schedule like that, with the lack of resources in their backyard. I don't see them developing into a big-time college power, college program where they can start plucking the talent out of Texas, out of Florida, out of California, out of Pennsylvania, Illinois, and being Alabama good, being, Texas of yesterday good, being Texas A&M good. I just don't see it happening. Now, if you put this West Virginia team in the Big Ten, they're probably not 3-2. If you put them in the ACC, again, they're not 3-2. This is just college athletics manipulating the system, manipulating the dollar, and trying to pump as much money as they possibly can into a TV budget to boost the revenue of the athletic department. Now, Oliver Luck is to blame for this at West Virginia. Oliver Luck, when he got done with his career in NFL Europe, he brought his family back to the greater Houston area. Andrew Luck, his son, Indianapolis Colts quarterback, now is a household name. Growing up as a child, he spent a good portion of his youth in the greater Houston area playing football. Oliver Luck was the athletic director at West Virginia. He was the one that orchestrated, finalized, punched the ticket, whatever you want to use right there, for West Virginia to join the Big 12. As a West Virginia alum, Oliver Luck should have known the type of student athlete that was in West Virginia's backyard. Oliver Luck should have also known the type of student athlete that was in the backyard of University of Texas, Oklahoma. To make that move takes everything out of college athletics, which people love. Playing for the name on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back. What Oliver Luck did at West Virginia was he created a problem for West Virginia football. West Virginia basketball, that's a different story because they're in New York, they're in New Jersey, they're in D.C., they're in Baltimore, they're in Philly. They're in all the hotbeds up and down the East Coast. They're plucking talent left and right. They're continuously making decent runs into March, conference tournament runs. So, I mean, you can't fault them as far as basketball goes. But as far as football goes, which is the only other profitable sport in college athletics besides men's basketball, you need to maximize your roster. You need to maximize your talent. You need to maximize your growth. And by being a 500 team in the Big 12, it's selling you short. Because if West Virginia were to play Maryland this weekend, they'd win by 30. If they were to go and they were to play Penn State, they'd win. If they were to go and they were to play NC State, they'd win. Big Ten, ACC, that's their wheelhouse. That's where they need to be. And I really hope that a change is made sooner rather than later. And speaking of changes, Chase Utley changes scenery. Now he's playing in the playoffs. Los Angeles Dodgers, for those of you that are unaware, Chase Utley's caught a little bit of heat. He had what was considered a dirty play, a dirty slide into second base. Ended up costing Ruben Tejada the rest of the season. Ended up breaking his leg. Now, spikes up, dirty plays, dirty slides. It happens. It happens in sports. There's dirty plays, dirty players. And I don't understand why, as fans, this brings us to that next level. I don't understand why we sit here and we say, oh, that's a dirty play. Oh, he's a dirty player. Ron Artest made a career off of flirting with that line, of being a dirty player, just throwing elbows, getting in fights, doing things that are perceived as dirty. Look at Ndamukong Suh. He just kicked Ryan Fitzpatrick in the face in London. He's been stepping on legs and doing all these different things since the day he's gotten into the NFL. It's gotten him labeled. It's gotten him fined. Look at Pedro Martinez. Pedro Martinez, he had no problem throwing at your head if you showed him up, if he thought you were too close to the plate, if he didn't like you. Hell, if he just wanted to fight Don Zimmer, he was going to throw it at someone's head to start a fight. But these dirty plays and dirty players always have a way of sorting themselves out. Things can be done in football with Ndamukong Suh. If two linemen really wanted to, they could seriously end his season on the next play, possibly his career. All you got to do is you just got to go high-low. All you got to do is have one guy just dive right at his legs, and another guy go high, clean him up, and then whatever happens, happens. I mean, that's kind of what you should expect as a dirty player. Now, Chase Utley isn't going to be in the lineup tonight for Mets-Dodgers. That leads me to believe that retaliation is definitely on the minds of the Dodgers, trying to protect Utley. But you have to think with the Philadelphia connection, Jimmy Rollins. Jimmy Rollins has always played well against the Mets, always kind of broken their hearts. So as that Philadelphia connection carries through, he's been a Mets killer. Do the Mets throw at Jimmy Rollins because it's the second best thing? That, I don't know. I would hate to see that happen. Playoffs, a lot are at stake. But like I said, dirty plays and dirty players, they have a funny way of being dealt with by however the opposing team or whatever feels is right. I mean, there's a lot of rules and unwritten rules in sports, and say what you want about them. They're there for a reason. There's an integrity of the game. There's a way that the professionals do it. I said it back with the Louisville Escort thing, right, wrong, indifferent. I don't really know. But I'll take a twofold approach to this. I know as Chase Utley, I'm probably trying to break up a double play as well. But the problem with him trying to break up that double play was he was nowhere near it. He didn't try to stay in the base path. He went away. He moved away. Like, he purposely sought out Tejada. So, trust me, win. That's what you're doing. It's the playoffs. Win. But you got to be smarter than the people that can catch you. Make it look like a legit baseball play if you're going to try to do something a little shady, a little bit dirty. On the flip side, if I'm the Mets, if Utley was on the field, first at bat, probably not hitting him, probably going to throw inside, once, twice, and then treat it like a normal at bat. Second time, I'm probably going to start off outside, come back with something off speed outside. And then the third pitch of his second at bat, I'm going to come back inside and I'm going to plunk him right in the elbow. Of course, everybody's going to know what I'm doing, but I didn't do it on the first pitch. I saw him at the first at bat, treat it like a normal at bat, threw him 2 things away on the second at bat. Then I came back inside and I got him. You better believe it's going to be a fastball. It's going to catch him in the ribs, catch him in the elbow, shoulder, somewhere. I guess we'll have to watch the game, see what happens, see how the series unfolds, see if Chase Utley's available for pinch hitting duty or if he's going to be relegated to the bench for the rest of the series. I don't know. We'll have to see. Um, there's a small school NFL factory that's recently popped up on my radar. And this small school factory is kind of an anomaly. It's a school that's progressed from a Division II level. They're now playing 1AA FCS football, whatever you want to call it, part of the Southland Conference. With the injury to Jamal Charles, it made me think of one thing, and one thing specifically. One, how great the scouting departments are with the NFL teams being able to break down film, diagnose who can play, who can't play, going for a match physically, to certain players they have on the team, very systematic. It's in New England right now. Dion Lewis is essentially Danny Woodhead. If you break it down, height, weight, speed, all that. So what the Kansas City Chiefs did is they went digging and they found pretty much an exact clone of Jamal Charles. I don't think I'm the only person in the world who has no idea how to say this person's name. Charcandrick West came in, got a lot of duty in the second half. Fantasy football team owners, if you haven't already put in a waiver claim for him, do it now. He won't be there. He took a lot of that work from Knile Davis, who's made himself a very solid handcuff option in these situations. But along with West, coming in at 5'11", at 205, 210 range, was running sub 4.4 with all his pre-draft measurables. Jamal Charles coming in at 5'11", right around 200 pounds, running that 4.3-ish, 40. Very similar running style of West and Jamal Charles. Now, I'm not saying West is Jamal Charles. There's one Jamal Charles. But when you look at it like that, just the digging that takes place. Now, I'm going to read to you a couple of other names recently that have been in the NFL that have come from Abilene Christian in Abilene, Texas, which has transitioned from D2 school into a now 1AA in the Southland Conference in the FCS. Listen to these names real fast. Daryl Richardson, running back. Former Bears receiver Johnny Knox. Former Bears defensive back Danielle Manning. Bernard Scott, running back with the Bengals. Clyde Gates was a wide receiver, bounced around in the AFC East with the Jets and the Dolphins. Taylor Gabriel, wide receiver on the Browns squad right now. A lot of skill position players, specifically on offense. Again, I was talking about Oklahoma State, West Virginia. This is not Texas. This is not, a big-time school like that in Texas, but the recruiting and the talent pool is so deep that you're able to find D2 schools that are pumping out NFL players. Now, while all these individuals didn't grow up in Texas, they found their way there for various reasons, falling through the cracks. But still, that's what? 1, 2, 3, 6, and West makes 7. That's 7 guys, recent history from a D2 that's recently transitioned into 1AA that has made serious headway with putting out NFL players. I'm very interested to see what this kid West can do. The Kansas City offense hasn't been that great. Alex Smith. He has Jeremy Maclin. Andy Reid loves Jeremy Maclin. He has had some, moments where he's looked really good this year. Travis Kelce is a very solid tight end. Jamal Charles was kind of, the fuel that had that machine going. I want to see what West can do in the passing game. I want to see what West can do in the running game. I want to see how valuable he can be. I want to see how he can handle a workhorse load. Also, what I want to do is I want to see how committed the Chiefs are to Knile Davis because to West because Knile Davis has already shouldered this load for 2 years. If Knile Davis can do something more productive than 2 carries for 2 yards, like he showed yesterday against the Bears, I could see this thing being more of a timeshare than anything, kind of replicating what the Titans have going on right now. But nonetheless, I'm interested to see what West can do. That's a lot of talent from a small school. Keep that in mind as you guys are watching with my favorite holiday of the year, the NFL Draft Weekend. Only about 10 months away. Definitely want to see what comes from that. Also, the NBA. The NBA is slowly coming back. There's some noise between Matt Barnes and Derek Fisher. Matt Barnes, Derek Fisher, the extent of their incident hasn't been 100% confirmed on either end. But it appears that Matt Barnes went and sought out Derek Fisher. They engaged in an altercation, verbal, physical, some combination of the both. All because Derek Fisher is now dating Matt Barnes' ex-wife. For those of you that have seen Basketball Wives on VH1, that's Gloria. Her sister was the one that was linked to Shaq and Gilbert Arenas in the series. Gloria and Matt Barnes' relationship is obviously no longer on. Derek Fisher and her, who knows how long they've been dating, reports will vary. But the fact that Matt Barnes hopped in his car and drove a serious amount of time to go hunt down Derek Fisher and try to, I guess, clear the air really speaks to Matt Barnes. Like, there's something wrong with you. If you feel jaded, you feel gypped, you feel wrong about how the relationship came to an end or whatever the situation is, that's a conversation you need to have with Gloria. Now, I know that you guys have kids involved, but you shouldn't be beating up her current boyfriend. That's not a good look for you. It's not a good look for her. And it's going to confuse the hell out of your kids. So definitely, Matt Barnes, shape up because you definitely have some value left on an NBA floor, I think. A lot of playoff run in you. Veteran leadership could definitely help out. Knock down threes, get after it on D. Obviously not afraid to mix it up. I mean, you show that on and off the court now. But I really think that you need to grow up a little bit because that's not going to help you with your chances of staying in the league or anything like that, especially with how well respected Derek Fisher is around the league. Speaking of the Knicks roster, I'm going to read to you these names. Now, I'm a Knicks fan, and you can let all the shots start. But Chris Porzingis, I'm interested in this kid. I want to see what he can do. Preseason, he's had some moments, showed some glimpses. I don't know what the plan is with him. I don't know what Phil Jackson wants Derek Fisher to do with him, but I definitely think he's someone that does have a NBA career. Now, I'm not sure if he's Vlade Divac. I'm not sure if he's Kevin Garnett. I'm not sure if he's Darko Milicic. I'm not sure who he is, but I'm interested in finding out. Carmelo's Carmelo. It's going to take him 35 shots to get 20 points. So you have to deal with the inefficiency. You have to deal with the lack of defense. You have to deal with him not running up and down the court. But you have to hope that this late in his career, he puts winning above all else and he gets recommitted defensively, gets recommitted to staying in shape and running the floor and maybe only taking 25 shots a game because his lack of ball movement, the black hole that he is not conducive to getting into the playoffs in a very manageable Eastern Conference. Which also brings me to who is the best player in the NBA? I talked about the Eastern Conference. LeBron James. What do the Cleveland Cavaliers do? How did they come back from last year and that rough loss to end the season to Golden State? Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Iggy, they all had a wonderful showing. That Golden State team's a little revamped. Steve Kerr is on a leave of absence, but they did bring in Steve Nash as a coach. So, love to see what's going to happen in Golden State. But who is the best player in the NBA? Is it LeBron? Is it Kevin Durant? Is it Anthony Davis? Any day of the week, if I'm starting an NBA team, I am taking Kevin Durant. Uh, I believe Kevin Durant is the best scorer on the planet. I believe he is a nightmare for offenses and defenses. I mean, do you guard him with a small forward? Do you guard him with a power forward? I mean, how do you play him? Because he has added on weight. He's added versatility to his game. While he's not Hakeem Olajuwon down low with a post-scoring repertoire that'll make you, you know, beg for more, he can score. He can score from anywhere. He's more of a jump shooter. I see him more um, as sticking to that 15 to 20-foot game, especially coming off the foot injury until he gets everything all squared away. LeBron, um, he has a big three, but he has a recruited big three like he did in Miami. Say what you want about Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant fell into good hands. His big three was built through the draft. Obviously, his big three is him, Serge Ibaka, and Westbrook. James Harden going to Houston, there was a big four, but that slipped away. What LeBron's done with his big threes is recruit. He has called Bosh, he has called Wade, and so let's do this in South Beach. He's had conversations with Love and Irving and himself and how they'll all mesh and all that nonsense. Now, I don't hate LeBron James. I like LeBron James. I think he's a wonderful businessman. I have a soft spot for Northeast Ohio. I lived there for a brief time in Canton, Ohio, when I was a kid. Some of the nicest people on earth. I really love him. What he does for Northeast Ohio from an economic standpoint, and what he does to bring people into the restaurants, into the clubs, into the different facilities that are all throughout Northeast Ohio when the Cavs are winning, has a huge economic impact on a segment of the country. The factory belt, as I like to call it, that has been wiped away because of the outsourcing of employment and everything. So for him to bring some sort of economic stimulus back to the greater Cleveland area, Northeast Ohio, I'll never hate him for that. But the one thing I think that he needs to do is at this stage in his career is he really needs to get focused on how do I win? How do I win? He needs to not even worry about Michael. He needs to worry about Kobe. How do you get to Kobe? How do you get to Michael? What does that team have, and what does that team need? Does David Blatt need to go? Is Tyronn Lue? Is he the answer as a head coach? Do they need to trade Kevin Love and get some additional pieces? Do they need to figure out a better rotation for minutes in the backcourt with Dellavedova, Shumpert, J.R. Smith, and Joe Harris, and whoever else they have on that roster and have available, to get some run, get some tick? Maybe they need to. But definitely I think that Cleveland has a strong shot in the East. But the player that I think that very well could end up being the best on the planet within the next calendar year is Anthony Davis. Defensively, he is all over the glass, blocks shots, and offensively he's really matured. At Kentucky, because Calipari always has, 7 top 30 recruits coming in every year. Stats and minutes and all that can be manipulated and misconstrued to a lack of efficiency when it is actually very efficient because they're playing on almost a pitch count. But he's developed an outside touch. He's developed some more moves around the bucket. He's become a go-to scorer. Now, I know in New Orleans with that supporting cast that he has, I like it. I see good coming from it. I really do see them blossoming into a playoff team that should be taken seriously this year. And I think it's all because of Anthony Davis. He's young as can be. That team's going to go as far as Anthony Davis will take them. He grew up with guard skills. He didn't hit a growth spurt until late in high school, was somewhere around 6'2". Showed up one year after a summer break, after a couple of months, and was enormous. Was the giant that we see him as today. And he keeps stacking on a couple inches here and there. So he has a very versatile game a very distinguished game. You can tell he's a Chicago guard because you can see a little bit of that Isaiah Thomas influence that a lot of Chicago guards have with the hesitation, the quick go, um, using the crossover and different ways of handling the ball to create space and opportunity not only for yourself but your teammates. Something Isaiah Thomas did. Think back to Tim Hardaway; he used it as well. Derrick Rose, very aggressive off the dribble, and he uses that for a multitude of options for his team offensively when he's healthy. Even some other Chicago guards that didn't hang around in the NBA for as long. If you think back to Sharon Collins at Kansas, very similar like that. John Shire, while you may not think of him in that regard growing up, he was a 6'6" point guard in high school. Tremendous handles. Use that, stop, go, left, right, crossover behind the back, between the legs, all that. So look for Anthony Davis to really step out of that post player comfort zone that a lot of people may think that he has. He was starting to knock down outside jump shots, like I said, but this year, Anthony Davis will win the MVP. He will take the Pelicans into the NBA playoffs. He will lead them to victory in the first round. I believe that they'll end up being the sixth seed in the West. And what comes from there, we will see. Obviously, it was a little choppy today. First time doing this. I had a bunch of fun. Hopefully, you guys had a lot of fun listening. Can't wait to hear what your guys' thoughts are.